Cardano in the news today. Of course, a lot of different projects really rolling into ADA, and it's causing a little bit of movement both in the token, also in the community itself. We'll dive in deep. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. Let's get into it. There's a lot of stories, but also a lot of I think strategic moves taking place right now with Cardano. Now, whether this is intentional or we just have a lot of projects that are kind of coming to fruit at the same time, that is a big question here. When you look at this first story, Cardano Gold, the first store of value on Cardano. Cargo, this is one that we've been looking at for a little bit. First store value on Cardano, supply is decreasing due to the whole burning of tokens. They are using the model. However, they are looking also at a way to look at repurchasing some of these tokens. So that in itself may change the model of how token distribution is done in the future. And if you look at what they're doing right now in terms of the just their burn schedule, here's the $100,000 in cargo will be burned from the treasury, which is 1% of the total supply. This is the schedule. Obviously, we saw January, February 1st, March 1st. So you can kind of see the numbers. 2023, a total of 2% of cargo coins will be burned from the treasury. And then using the 3% fixed cargo token burning schedule from treasury plus buyback of markets and burning in the total supply. So that gets to 30% overall. So this to me is very intriguing, I think, in the sense of how different stable aspect or pegs are looking at trying to keep inflation from occurring within a project. So I think that's an interesting strategy. I'm kind of interested in what you guys think. Do you like this approach versus, say, a traditional just burn, or kind of this whole aspect of slowing the burn like what we're seeing with ETH potentially coming up? Well, will be 90% less in terms of the amount of ETH that's going to be available. So interesting strategy. I think this is one that we need to be watching for ADA in the very near future. Also, news on ADA, of course, is none other than Wonder Woman. She's now backing a DEX on Cardano as they launch their NFT marketplace. This, of course, is AdaNFT. A little bit about them. It's one of the earliest DeFi protocols built on the Cardano network. And it is one of those that we've looked at before. It hasn't been really at the forefront. Let me kind of zoom in on that. It's designed to kind of tackle the issue of poor curation identified in other NFT marketplaces. I don't know if I would agree with that completely, because I think OpenSea does a good job on curation. I guess the question will be, when we start to see enough platforms really roll out on ADA, will this be one of the key ones that really rolls into kind of the next generation? Their CEO laid out his plans regarding the NFT marketplace. Let me kind of just pull it up right here. In pursuit of gamifying ADEX or ASWAP, DEX will look towards a new frontier of blockchain. NFTs interacting with traditional finance protocols, which I've talked about many times here on the show, is that we will see more and more of that for sure. And then they also raised $2.6 million in private investment round. This was the one that led into Gal Gadot was in it with Shima Capital, Pluto Digital, and then of course a few others there. So interesting, not necessarily mind-blowing for me, at least in the essence of what we'll see in terms of marketplaces. I think the big key here is taking a look at how these marketplaces kind of evolve, and also whether or not they get mass adoption, because that's going to be the other factor that really comes into play here. But it is one that I'm watching very closely. Also want to jump over here to just Cardano staking. This, of course, is going to be the big one on Coinbase. Officially expanded staking offerings to include ADA, so you can do this beginning your earning your rewards now on your crypto. See ADA obviously over on Coinbase. Love to know if you guys are investing and going into some of these things, like what we're going to see with ETH 2.0 and the amount of staking rewards that will be available on pretty much every exchange I anticipate. I'm kind of curious, are you guys looking at that as a major strategy for you to do acquisition on traditional exchanges out there, or are you looking at maybe continuing to use wallet acquisition or other maybe other DEXs or other exchanges out there outside of the traditional ones, like say Coinbase, well, let's take a look at FTX or even Crypto.com to a certain extent. I'm kind of curious of whether or not you guys are going to go in that direction for staking some of these bigger tokens for rewards. The other thing that's moving is into institutional demand. Large transactions now on Cardano are up 50x in 2022. This, to me, is probably the biggest bullish sign, at least for Cardano in the short term. When you see that kind of movement and just the amount of projects that are kind of moving in that space, and then you see institutions jumping at that level. Now, granted, maybe they had just such a small position that 50x is maybe not a big jump, but if you take a look right here, the volume on-chain transaction, 100K, has now increased to 50x in just 2022. This gives you a total of 69.09 ADA were moved in these large transactions. That's in billions. In these large transactions, represented 99% of the total on-chain value. So interesting times with Cardano. What is going on that is causing this kind of activity? And of course, I know, sure, we've got certain things happening within Bitcoin and Ethereum right now, which are kind of guiding a little bit of a market correction and movement here. And April still looks like it's going to be a very bullish indicator for the month before we start to see maybe some downtrends in May. Love to get you guys' feedback also. Do you think May is going to be that period in which we start to see a little bit of adjustment? Remember last May, Bitcoin flew to an all-time high at that time, and then we had the May crash, of course, occur. So working through the summer months, and then we saw Bitcoin really kind of jump to the next level. Cardano whales are on a buying spree, and this kind of just revalidates that 69 billion right there on March 28th. Zooming up on that, 69 billion in ADA moving on-chain on March 28th. This is going to look at some buying pressure, could push Cardano to $2. But in reality, when you look at where Cardano is on the chart, and I'll show you guys some sentiment data, we'll also take a look at the price looks and predictions of where Cardano might go. $2 is within striking distance for Cardano. And if we start to see and continue to see Bitcoin holding and or starting to move past, if we get past this 48 and we start to crack the 50K number, sentiment directions that we're seeing on all of our charts right now. We're going to be updating the CPI data for first thing tomorrow morning. Hopefully we'll have a good outlook for the weekend. We also are going to be doing an analysis with Evan Aldo tomorrow on the show to break down Bitcoin and Ethereum for the weekend. So, because I think this weekend could be a very interesting time for a lot of these major projects, including Solana, Avalanche, and also Cardano. All three of these altcoins, I think, are in a good position right now to be looking at a fly time very quickly. Wave Financial also is launching an ADA yield fund to support Cardano DeFi system growth. Again, and this is just more and more good news for Cardano, because I think as you look at projects like this, anytime you see these kind of ecosystem injections coming into the space, to me, this is just good signs in the overall market. But remember, I'm still very bullish on where the market is leaning, but I'm a little bit bearish on the amount of dollars that are being implemented in. Now, I know we have a lot of cash that's come in terms of VCs and different kinds of roll-ups and things of that nature over the last year. But here recently, I feel like that the amount of dollars that are being committed to these ecosystems seem to be shrinking a little bit. And that concerns me a little bit because I feel like right now is the time that we should be doubling down. So I don't know if it is the fact that we've seen a bit of adjustment in the stock market. We've seen oil prices start to adjust. We've seen scenarios on almost everything with exception of crypto and maybe even gold to a certain extent that have adjusted slightly upward. But with stocks, and especially in the tech space, we've seen a lot of corrections. So is that implementing or causing a little bit of a ripple effect to the VCs and some of the private equity groups that would essentially be looking at doing these kind of things? That's going to be a big question to watch in the coming months. The last point here is Samsung is, of course, jumping into adding these NFT marketplaces into the TV platform itself. And to me, this is big because if we do see something like this start to move into Samsung, Vizio, many of the smart TV projects out there, this, especially if we go in to see some integration with Sony, though I don't think we will. But the point is that these potential marketplaces could start finding homes, much like apps used to do with these smart TVs, circumventing what is problematic for the app ecosystem that resides on Google and Android and, of course, iOS, because I think that's going to be a big factor of how these things can grow. Now, could Cardano and one of their marketplaces make their way into something like is what happening here with Nifty Gateway? So interesting stuff here. Nifty, of course, just partnered with creating the NFT platform for the smart TV platform for Samsung. So this is a good move. I think this is going to be interesting to watch in the short term, especially just in general of, if anything, awareness. This will be a big factor there. I mean, not many people probably watch Pluto or some of these platforms that you go out on to some of these smart TVs, and you do have that in terms of options, but it does put those icons and those logos on a lot of TVs on those startups, and people could start to ask, what is this? I've been hearing about NFTs, just to create a little bit of understanding of where it's going. I think in mainstreaming this is going to be really important. All right, we're going to jump over to the CPI just to give you guys a quick look at Cardano. And if you haven't been to our page recently, one thing we have done that is a little different in, I'll give you the navigation lowdown on this. The top crypto button now is going to give you access to the top 15 projects that we track on historical databases. We still do our every 1 to 2 weeks, we'll do a top 20 list, which will go into the 7,000 tokens and just look at the top tokens that rise to the top. That's how the top 20 list. But if you go into our top crypto, you'll be able to get access to all of these all the time. And we're dropping these data points twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. We may go to a three time a week drop very soon. And we're also looking at adding more tokens into this as well. But let's jump over to Cardano real quick. And you can kind of take a quick look at Cardano. So we've been mapping this for quite some time. Overall, you know, it's been up in terms of the overall market, which again, this goes back to my point of why we're starting to still see trends leading into April. I feel very bullish on where Bitcoin and Ethereum will be going, and some of these altcoins will follow along. And if you look at where we are going on sentiment with Cardano, it had been trending down up until the 18th of March, at which time it took a positive spin up. It's about the time we started to see the movement. Cardano is now trading there at 72.15. And if you look at amplification, this is the one to me that is most intriguing, because we had amplification and sentiment getting very tight with each other on the 21st when we started seeing the move on Cardano. And then we had a little bit of a dip, which is very indicative of what happens with Cardano, and then another big move on Cardano. Now, if you look at what's happening on the price chart in this same kind of scenario, this essentially is this flat line dip and then this big move right here for Cardano over the 7-day. If you look at the 1 month, this is the kind of the scenario that we were looking at pre of what happened really about right here on the 20th. And if you go back here and take a look of here on the 18th, this is what we're looking at right there, because that downslide was really falling for the last month and a half until we saw this little pump right here around the 18th of March. So if you are looking at Cardano, what I am trying to position on, and I ended up doing a little bag on Cardano because I had completely exited the position last year. This was my first jump back in. And most likely I will trade out of this one. It is a short-term token for me. If I'm looking long-term, I'm still looking at Avalanche as my #1 long-term. In terms of altcoins, and then Solana, a large position again. Again, we do market movers for you guys to give you kind of breakdowns, give you analysis, and also give you some insights as to where the direction of the market is going. But the #1 thing here, guys, not financial advice. What I always recommend to you as you get into these things is make sure and go out and do your own research. If you're a Cardano lover, great, good for you. I love the fact that we're seeing some movement on this token, and we haven't seen it. It's been due, and I'm so happy for anybody that is a token holder for a long time on Cardano. I just hope it gets back up around the $2 mark in this run. If we start to see Bitcoin go to an all-time high, Cardano could go back to its all-time high of around $3. So it's definitely not outside. I would say this, though, watch the sentiment numbers tomorrow. This will be a tell into the weekend of how Cardano and some of these altcoins will be going. All right, if you guys want to catch us Out on Twitter, it's me at Paul Barron. You can also just follow the channel, which is Paul Barron TV. And then also, we are looking at launching our Discord channel. We are going to be talking about that with the Diamond Circle members. So make sure, get into the Diamond Circle. All you have to do is join. It's free. We drop a couple of emails a week. We'll give you insights, updates. Sometimes we'll drop insights on some of our own analytics, all in the Diamond Circle. And the best of all, we give away stuff in the Diamond Circle emails in terms of rewards. We do that in the email now, so we notify everybody via email. So just be watching that so you can keep track of all that. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.